Which blood vessel carries oxygenated blood from the lungs back to the left atrium of the heart? Pulmonary vein. How many chambers does the human heart possess? 4. What is the primary function of blood platelets, thrombocytes? Assisting in blood clotting and coagulation. Which chamber of the human heart has the thickest muscular wall to pump blood throughout the entire systemic circulation? Left ventricle. What prevents the backward flow of blood inside the veins? One-way valves. Which specific structure acts as the natural pacemaker of the human heart by initiating electrical impulses? Sinoatrial node, SA node. Which type of blood vessel features extremely thin walls that are only one cell thick to allow for gas and nutrient exchange? Capillary. In a healthy adult human, a normal resting blood pressure reading is generally considered to be around 120 by 80 mmHg. Which component of blood lacks a nucleus when it reaches maturity in adult humans? RBC, red blood cell. The first heart sound lub heard through a stethoscope is primarily caused by the closure of the atrioventricular valves, AV valves. Which blood vessel carries deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs? Pulmonary artery. What is the liquid component of blood that makes up about 55% of total blood volume? Plasma. Which protein found inside red blood cells binds directly to oxygen molecules? Hemoglobin. The double-layered membrane sac that encloses and protects the human heart is called the pericardium. Which blood type is widely considered the universal donor because its red blood cells lack A, B and Rh antigens? O negative. What path describes the flow of blood from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart? Pulmonary circulation. Which valve is located specifically between the left atrium and the left ventricle? Bicuspid mitral valve. What specific condition is characterized by the hardening and narrowing of arteries due to plaque build-up? Atherosclerosis. Which large blood vessel collects deoxygenated blood from the upper parts of the body, head, neck and arms and delivers it into the right atrium? Superior vena cava. The second heart sound dub heard through a stethoscope is caused by The second heart sound, dub, heard through a stethoscope is caused by the closure of the semilunar valves. What is the standard scientific term used to describe the relaxation phase of the cardiac cycle? Diastole. Which genetic disorder is characterized by the blood's inability to clot properly due to a lack of specific clotting factors? Hemophilia. Which blood vessels supply oxygen-rich blood directly to the human heart? Which blood vessels supply oxygen-rich blood directly to the heart muscle tissue itself? Coronary arteries. What unique feature characterizes the hepatic portal system? It routes blood from the digestive tract to the liver before returning to the heart. Which type of white blood cell is responsible for producing antibodies? B. Lymphocyte. What condition is defined by a significantly lower than normal count of RBCs or a lack of hemoglobin? Anemia. Which blood type is known as the universal recipient because individuals with this type can safely receive blood of any ABO group? AB positive. What structural component anchors the cusps of the AV valves to the papillary muscles, preventing them from flipping inside out during a contraction? Cordae tendineae. Which mathematical formula represents the calculation for cardiac output? CO. Cardiac output is equal to stroke volume plus heart rate. Stroke volume into heart rate. In which type of circulatory system found in animals like insects does blood flow into open body cavities rather than remaining enclosed in vessels? Open circulatory system. What is the standard medical term used to describe an abnormally fast resting heart rate, typically over 100 beats per minute? Tachycardia. Which specific type of white blood cell is the most abundant in human blood and acts as the first responder to bacterial infection? Neutrophil. Which layer of the heart wall is composed of cardiac muscle tissue and is responsible for the pumping action? Myocardium. Blood traveling through the inferior vena cava empties directly into which chamber of the heart? Right atrium. What is the primary function of the lymphatic system in relation to the circulatory system? Collecting excess interstitial fluid and returning it to the bloodstream. Which ion is absolutely essential for the biochemical cascade of blood clotting and myocardial contraction? Calcium. On a standard electrocardiogram, ECG or EKG trace, what does the QRS complex represent? Ventricular depolarization. Which blood vessel is subjected to the highest hydrostatic blood pressure in the human body? Aorta. What is the name of the internal muscular wall that completely separates the right and left ventricles of the heart? Interventricular septum. Erythropoietin EPO, the hormone that stimulates the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells, is primarily released by which organ? Kidneys. What is the approximate lifespan of a healthy, mature human red blood cells in circulation? 120 days. Which structural feature of cardiac muscle cells allows rapid electrical and chemical communication between adjacent cells? Intercalated discs. Which of the following conditions is characterized by a temporary or permanent decrease in blood supply to a tissue or organ, causing oxygen deprivation? Ischemia. Which plasma protein plays a major role in maintaining blood osmotic pressure, preventing water from leaking out of vessels? Albumin. What is the name of the fetal blood vessel remnant that connects the pulmonary artery to the aorta, bypassing the non-functional fetal lungs? Ductus arteriosus. Which type of WBCs release histamines and heparin during inflammatory and allergic reactions? Basophil. On an ECG trace, what does the T wave represent? Ventricular repolarization. What is the name of the dense network of modified cardiac muscle fibers that rapidly distributes electrical impulses to the ventricular wall? Purkinje fibers. Which mechanism primarily aids the movement of blood through the veins of the lower limbs back toward the heart? The skeletal muscle pump. Where does the breakdown of old or damaged RBCs primarily take place? Spleen and liver. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more MCQs.